What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of ASVAB Domination Mini Quiz Monday. We're going to be going over about 5 ASVAB questions today just to get some practice. And these sessions are open, so definitely hit me up on Instagram or send me an email, however you want to get in touch. Let me know if you need ASVAB help, and I will send you the link so that you can join these classes. It's just an open session to go over a few questions. And if you bring questions, I'd be happy to answer them during this session. Yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. These questions came from a ASVAB practice test that my family made. We're gonna go through and practice these questions, see if they're right, see if they're all good. And then hopefully we can come away with some actionable advice for our next test. All right. If we look here at this question, Gage has 4 daughters. One daughter is 6. His twins are 11, and he has a 16-year-old daughter. What is the average age of all of his daughters? And so averages are a very unique formula. So average is equal to, I call it the sum of numbers over the number of numbers. And so if you've ever seen like averages, if you've ever asked, what's the class average or what is the average return on investment? What you're asking is what's typical, right? Now, the way to figure out what is typical is you add up everything that's been done and divide it by that number of data points. So if we wanted the average height of 7 people, we would add up all of their heights. So we'd stack them on top of each other and then divide that by 7, and you would find the average height, the typical height that falls between all of those. Let's go through. We'll take the sum of numbers here. So how many daughters are there is the first most important question, and that will help to determine our denominator. So in this case, ages added together divided by number of daughters. All right, and shout out to Gage. He was a dad before I was a dad, and he was kind of laying the groundwork of how do you be a dad. So I really appreciate my buddy Gage for all of his advice in fatherhood and all that. But let's go through, let's add up the number of kids. So he's got 4 daughters. And so one of the things that ASVAB might get you on is here it says twins. So if you didn't notice, it was the eldest who was 16. Let's see, 16-year-old, and then the two 11-year-olds. So we're going to add that twice, and then one 4-year-old. And so you add all those together, and then you're going to divide by the number of daughters, which is 4. And the answer should be somewhere between 16 and 4. And then, of course, those 11s are going to skew the average either up or down. But let's go through. We're going to add everything in the numerator together. So 16 plus 4 is probably easiest. So 20, 31, 42 divided by 4. And then you can go through and divide that. Now, if you're super good with fractions, you know right away that is 10 and 2/4, because 4 times 10 is 40 with 2/4 remaining. And that is also equal to 10 and 1/2. Let's see if that answer is available. It is. So we're going to go with 10.5. So in this case, the answer is 10.5. All we do is we take all of the ages, add those together, and divide by the number of ages. In this case, just 4. And we get the average age. So 10.5, average age. All right. And so this is a pretty standard question that you might see on the ASVAB. Getting good with averages is really helpful, especially if you know how to convert it from fractions into mixed numbers like this. All right, so just figuring out how many times does 4 go into 42, and you can always do it like this. You could always do the division, top dog gets the house. 4 goes into 4 one time. Remainder of 0, bring down the 2, and 4 doesn't fit into 2, so we put 0, and that's where that 10 comes from, with the remainder of 2. And so 10 and 2/4, which of course turns into that 10.5. 2 out of 4 is the same as 10, 1 out of 2. So first question done. Let's move on to the next. Colton, my buddy Colt. Colton is a gymnast who practices 2 hours a day every day, except the weekends. Every other weekend, he gets 4 hours on the Saturday, but he takes every other weekend off. So in a 30-day month that begins on a Monday, how many days will he have practiced? Good question. And so what I would like to do here is kind of rule th some things out. So we can always start with that formula, but if we can rule some stuff out, maybe we can get to an answer even a little bit faster. So if there's a 30-day month, maybe we can eliminate something. Does he ever take a day off? And so that would be the first question I'd be asking. 2 hours a day every day except the weekends. So he skips weekends, but not every weekend. He is a studious gymnast. Every other weekend, he gets 4 hours on Saturday, but he takes every other weekend off. So 30 days, starting on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I would probably do it just like this, where I write it all the way out. And so that's 7 days so far, 14, 21, 28, and then Monday, Tuesday would be 30. All right. And so you can see each week counts as 7 more days, except for that last week, there's only 2 extra days there. And so now you can actually go through and show which days he would be working. So every other weekend, he gets 4 hours on the Saturday. So not this one, but this one 4, not this one, but this one 4. And this day does not count because this is after Tuesday. So we wouldn't count this one. All right. Every other weekend, he gets 4 hours on the Saturday, but he takes every other weekend off. In a 30-day month that begins on a Monday, how many days will he have practiced? So I think I think it's implied here that he would be taking those Sundays off. Okay. And so, oh, and I forgot, this one should be counted as well. So it should be 4 hours Saturday here, skipped here, 4 hours Saturday there, skipped there, and then 4 hours Saturday again, but we don't count it because it's after the 30 days. And so now you can see, okay, how many days did he work? So these ones, Monday through Friday, definitely worked out every single day. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 times 5, which is 20. And then we'll add up the other 2 days and these 2 days. So that would be 21, 22, 23, 24. So I would say maybe 24 days here. This question isn't the best written because it says the same thing kind of twice here. Every other weekend, he gets 4 hours on the Saturday, but takes every other weekend off. So it doesn't really say anything about Sunday. So I think the assumption should be that Sunday isn't a day that he's working out. So 30-day month begins on a Monday. How many days will you practice? I'd go with 24 here pretty confidently. All right. And so sometimes it helps to go through and draw it out. Usually the thing that I can tell best is when a student is able to learn is going to be determined by how much they write on their paper. So even though this just looks like a lot of chicken scratch, if a student goes through and writes something, anything, I know that they're trying to solve the question. So always, always, always use your scratch paper as you're going through your ASVAB. Because the answer should be in there somewhere. Even when you don't know what to do, try to at least draw something that takes the data from the question and puts it on paper in front of you so you can use that to come up with a solution. All right. Miriam had one apple that she sold to Johnny for 50 cents. When he gave $1, how much money did she give him back? So if Johnny buys an apple for 50 cents and he pays $1, this question isn't too crazy. A lot of people like the money questions because they're used to seeing questions about change. So Miriam had $1 that she sold Johnny for 50 cents. When he gave $1, how much money did she give him back? Usually it's going to be that 50 cents back, right? As long as you know that $1 is equal to 100 cents. And then you take away 50 of those cents for the dollar that he bought, and you'll be left with another 50 in change. And if you find questions like this, it's usually a good sign because you can go through them pretty confidently. It could also be a bad sign because it's giving you easier questions. It's a responsive test, so when it gives easy questions, it may mean that you're getting some of them wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean to give up, right? If you're getting easy questions, always take the easy answers. So in this case, the easy answer is 50 cents, and we'll move on to the next. 5/4. All right, cool. So we talked briefly about fractions at the beginning of this. So 5/4 is equal to what? All right. Now, some people would see a fraction and not know what to do. And that's okay. What you're trying to do is get beyond that, right? It's okay if you're not sure what to do, but it's even better if you can make an educated guess. So 54, right? If you take a test and you get 5 questions right out of 4, how well did you do on the test, right? You get 5 questions right, only 4 questions were asked, but you got 5 of them right. It means something kind of weird's going on. How could you get 5 answers right if there's only 4 questions? So one of them must have been for extra credit, something like that. But there's no way that you got 54 answers right. Okay. So if you can eliminate that one, that's great. There's no way that you did 5 tests either, right? 5.4 doesn't really make sense because that is 5 holes and then 0.4 remaining. And so that's actually too much as well. 5/4 is a little more than twice as much, right? So it's a little bit, or it's a little bit more than the full amount. And so these two answers make the most sense. But if we wanted 2, 2 is actually equal to 8/4. And so 5 out of 4 is going to be less than this 2 and 1/4. And so you can eliminate that. And here you can see the answer is going to be that 1 and 1/4. Now, the proper way, the easy way and mathematical way to do this is you just put the top dog in the house. So you go 5/4. This one goes in the house. So it's 5 inside, 4 outside. And you ask yourself, how many times does 4 fit into 5? Okay, 5 here. How many 4s are going to fit in there? It's only one time that it'll fit. With a remainder, you multiply 4 times 1 of 1. So 5 minus 4 is 1. And so that's where you get that 1 and 1/4, right? This is a basic premise of going from improper fractions to mixed numbers. Now, if I wanted to go back into an improper fraction, all I do is multiply across the bottom and add across the top. And so 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 becomes 5/4. And so you can see, oh, okay, these are equivalent values. And that's what this equal sign means. What is it equal to? And so the answer here is going to be C, 1 and 1/4. But that elimination technique, super valuable. If you can look at a question and say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense that it be twice as much or 5 times as much or 54 times as much, you can go through and be very confident that this answer is the answer that makes the most sense. And that helps with other tests too. That's really helpful with word knowledge. All right, last question. 1/8 is equal to what? And so we're going to do the exact same thing here. This is super, super important with fractions, is all you do is put top dog in the house. So we start with 1/8. We don't know what it's equal to, right? And so we're going to put 1 in the house and see how many times does 8 fit into 1. Now, if I have 8 fingers, how many times will it fit into 1? It won't. It's too big, right? 8's too big to fit into 1. So what I need to do is add a decimal. Just like $1 is the same as $1.00. When you add a decimal, you don't change the value of that number. So 1.0 is the same as 1. But now it's something we can work with. All you do is you put the decimal right on top and you ask, how many times does 8 fit into 10? Well, that's something we can do. 8 fits into 10 one time. You subtract and you get that remainder of 2, right? 10 minus 8 is 2. And there's a remainder, so it'd be 0.1 and 2/8. But even better, now that we're in decimals, you just want to go through and solve the decimal. So bring down another 0, because now it's 1.00, which is the same as 1.0, which is the same as 1. And how many times does 8 go into 20? Well, that is going to be twice. 8 times 2 is 16. And we borrow from the 2, and we get 4. And then bring down one last 0. How many times does 8 fit into 40? And that's where that 5 will be. 8 times 5 is 40, and then the decimal terminates there. So 0.125, 0.125 is the answer here. And so that's our correct answer. Now that's how you go through and solve it, but let's talk one more time about what we were talking about earlier, which is trying to eliminate some of these answers. So if you've ever taken a test and gotten only 1 out of 8, don't worry, sometimes that happens, right? I've taken tests where I've only gotten 1 answer right out of 8 questions. It happens. But I know that I didn't get an 80%. I know that I didn't get 0.8 right. I know that it wasn't even a quarter. It wasn't 1 out of 4 right, 25%. And I know it definitely wasn't 0.5, which would be 50%. It was closer to 12.5%. And so that's another way to go through and solve these types of questions. So you can eliminate the possible answers there. But yeah, thank you so much for attending the mini quiz Monday. I will be out of town next week. I may try to do some sort of a little practice session, just bringing my iPad along to get some, kind of stay consistent with it. But these are a lot of fun. And if you have any questions from your ASVAB studies, definitely send them my way. I'd love to cover them on a mini quiz Monday. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.